Hey guys, welcome to the video. Salt here. Today I'll be going over the Warframe Ash Prime. For people who don't know me yet, I'm an LR5 with over 6,000 hours in the game, and my goal is to provide builds and guides for people to have an easier time in Warframe. Okay, so let's start. Before we go over the build, I want to go over Ash's abilities for people who don't know them yet. And we're going to start with his passive here, which is that slash status effects do 25% more damage and last 50% longer. His one is Shuriken. This will actually be the ability that we're going to be subsuming out, but I still want to go over it for people who don't know it. So this is just an ability that launches a projectile or projectiles that do damage and can impale enemies to walls. The two is Smokescreen. This will drop a smoke bomb at your location, stunning enemies and making you invisible. The three is Teleport. You'll teleport to your target, and if your target was an enemy, you'll perform a finisher and stagger them. Additionally, if you cast this on your Bladestormed targets, this will be free and you'll enter the attack animations with your shadow clones. Ash's 4 is Bladestorm. This is the new moddable pseudo-exalted weapon. Your first cast will mark enemies, and your second cast will send out your shadow clones to attack those marked enemies. This will do a large initial hit with a guaranteed slash proc. The subsume we're going to be using is Banshee's Silence, and also using the augment for it called Savage Silence. This is going to increase our finisher damage by 300%. So Silence will create an aura around you that stuns enemies for 2 seconds and turns off enemy special abilities. That means things like Eximus abilities and also Acolyte abilities. Now, I did a lot of testing this morning between 3 different subsumes: Silence, Roar, and Wrathful Advance. And it's because Roar had previously been beating Savage Silence for a few patches, and Wrathful Advance had kind of proven itself to be one of the top tier picks for most melee builds. So using the exact same baseline build, which did include a galvanized steel mod for crit damage, which is important to note here since crit damage really only benefits the Wrathful Advance subsume. The results were as follows. Roar at ×12 combo was 1,900,000 initial damage. Wrathful Advance at ×12 combo was 7,900,000 initial damage. And Savage Silence at ×12 combo was 11 million initial damage, making Savage Silence the clear winner in this baseline test. But it is important to note that I do think Wrathful Advance can perhaps be equal or even slightly better than Savage Silence, but only if you completely lean into crit damage stat. That would mean Tenacious Bond on your pet for 1.2 crit damage, 4 or more purple shards for crit damage, probably using more mods for crit damage on the Bladestorm Pseudo Exalt itself, also using the Arcane Crepuscular that is crit damage. So you'll be doing all of this just to be at the same level or possibly slightly more than Savage Silence, but you'll be doing it while kind of neglecting other things on your build. Because remember, Savage Silence is not only the most damaging pick, but you also get Silence, which is one of the best subsumes by itself for invisibility frames. The only thing invisibility frames are typically vulnerable to is random chip damage if they're playing multiplayer, and AoE Eximus enemies, which Silence completely shuts off. Savage Silence is also not reliant on crit damage as a stat, so you're able to use that mod slot for possibly another attack speed mod. And if you know anything about Bladestorm, the attack speed affects the animation speed, which is the biggest thing holding the ability back, the animation speed. And for these reasons, after my testing, I'll be choosing Silence as my subsume. But just know that if you did go Wrathful Advance already, to not worry, it's pretty close in damage and could possibly beat Silence, but only if you go super hard into crit damage. So if you did go Wrathful Advance, just go super hard into crit damage. Okay, let's go over the mods. Primed Redirection will increase our shields and give us a 2.5 second shield gate, which will be enough to deal with the random chip damage we may take in multiplayer lobbies. Prime Flow is going to increase our energy pool. Prime Continuity increases our ability duration. Savage Silence gives us that 300% finisher damage. And in the next few slots here, we have increases to our ability strength. We have Umbral Intensify for plus 44%, Blind Rage for plus 99%, Transient Fortitude for plus 55%, and finally Augur Secrets for plus 24%. Now you can consider Augur Secrets a flex slot. Maybe you wanted a little bit more duration on your build, and so you would just flip Augur Secrets into Augur Message, which would give you duration. Or maybe you wanted some more energy generation on your build, then you would just flip Augur Secrets into Equilibrium, and now you would have some more energy generation on your build. All three of these mods are the same polarity, so it's really easy to kind of flip around and change them as you want. Me personally, I'm going to be sticking with Augur Secrets. In the Aura slot, we go with Steel Charge for melee damage. In the Exilus slot, we go for Power Drift for ability strength. And now going over the Arcanes, we have Molt Augmented for ability strength. And Arcane Trickery will be used to maintain our stealth. Now there is a way to remove Arcane Trickery and to rely solely on Ashes 2 for invisibility. Smokescreen. And that would be to change Augur Secrets into Augur Message, which would increase our duration, like we said already. But you would probably also want to add at least 2 Archon Shards for duration. That would give you about 25 seconds on your smokescreen, which is a lot more manageable. But that's up to you. I personally just like getting my invisibility through Arcane Trickery. Now, possible arcanes for this slot, just basically anything that would increase ability strength even more. Ability strength is kind of king for Ashe here. So if you did replace Arcane Trickery, just look for something else that gives you more ability strength. Okay, let's go over the new moddable shadow clones. Firstly, we have 2 mods with finisher damage. That's Covert Lethality and Finishing Touch. Then we have 3 mods with flat damage. That's Prime Pressure Point, Condition Overload, and Spoiled Strike. Now we need at least 1 mod for attack speed, and we have Berserker Fury here, but there's an option to add another attack speed mod in the very last slot. Primed Fever Strike will increase our initial Bladestorm damage by a lot, but it doesn't affect the slash proc damage. Now, interestingly enough, I couldn't find or spawn in any enemies that would even live past the initial hit for the slash proc to even do any damage. Which leads us to our last mod, Melee Elementalist. Now, this will technically almost double your slash tick damage, but again, I couldn't find enemies who would even live past the initial hit. And so I may actually need to enlist the help of some of you viewers. So I personally haven't taken this build yet to level cap, but if you do before me, please let me know if you're still one-shotting level cap enemies without even applying the slash proc. Because if that's the case, then there's really no point for Elementalist, and instead we would just go with another attack speed mod here to quicken our Bladestorm animation speed. And finally, in the last arcane slot here, we have Melee Retaliation for about a 200% melee damage increase. Okay, let's go over some optional externals for Ashe, starting with Archon Shards. The one I think is close to not being optional, but is almost needed, is either 1 purple for the mini equilibrium effect, or 1 yellow shard for more energy on energy orbs. And then in the other 4 slots, I decided I wanted to be a little bit greedier on ability strength, and I just went with all 4 for ability strength. Let's briefly talk about the primary and the secondary slot here. So because you're using Condition Overload, you'll want to prime your enemies with statuses. 3 of the best ranged primers in the game are going to be the primary Ceto Prime and its alternate fire, and the secondaries, the Epitaph or the Compressa. Now, out of those 3, most people would agree that the Compressa is the best primer. But here's the thing, the Grimoire, which is a secondary also, is such an amazing utility pick, it's really hard to pass on. You can build the Grimoire for plus 60% ability strength, plus 60% ability duration, or you can even build it as an energy generator. And so for that reason, me personally, I'll be using the slightly weaker primer of the Cedo Prime and then using the Grimoire in my secondary slot. I'm going to skip ahead to the pet for a second because this will all kind of tie into each other. So because I went with the slightly weaker primer with the Cedo Prime, I'm going to be using a priming pet also. Now, the Dirija and the Nautilus are by far the best priming pets, but they prime from melee range, and Bladestorm is usually used at medium-ish ranges. So for that reason, we have the Mechanical Hound as a pet. I have a video out on him already, but I'll still show the build off here. He's the best ranged priming pet in the game, priming 7 statuses minimum, although because he's not a Sentinel and so he can run around on his own, he can be less consistent at always priming than Dirija or Nautilus can. Now, if you were going to do the bulk of the priming yourself, like with the Compressa, then I believe Panzervolpa Phyla becomes your best choice here. All right, so now melees. The best melees for passive buffs generally are the Praetos Incarnon for more parkour speed, or the Bow, Anku, or Okina Incarnons for more movement speed. But also consider 2 weapons that have special amalgam mods. And that's the Ripkas right here, that have plus 20% shotgun reload speed if you decide to use the Cedo like I did, or the Furax that gives plus 45% fire rate on your secondaries if you decided to use the Compressa in your secondary slot. And finally, Focus Schools. We're going to be going with Naramon to slow our combo decay. This is how you build Ash Prime. I hope you guys liked it, and if you did, consider leaving a like or subscribing for future content. And so I'll leave you with about 5 minutes of gameplay showcasing Ash. Again, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. All right, bye.